You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national insurance columnist and financial color commentator. All this week, our series on marketing to the fiduciary community. And on Today on the Biz, why market to fiduciaries with special guest CPA Ken Davis.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting from Fountain Hills, Arizona to a national audience of financial professionals right here, not only in Arizona, but the Fountain of Arizona, the largest fountain in the United States. And with me today, CLU, CHFC, CFP, and yes, CPA, Ken Davis. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hey, Stephen. Good to see you.
I can't believe we're talking about this. All this week we're talking about marketing to fiduciaries. I've seen so much out on the major industrial sites. Well, we know how to do it, we do this, that, and the other, and they charge you for it, and there's all these videos on it and so forth. And I have to say this, and I hope this doesn't sound like a little bit of bravado or bragging on our part, but Ken and I have been doing this for quite a long time, and actually Ken introduced me to the whole concept of marketing to CPAs through education. And we've been doing this now and have taught at the CPA Society and really have gotten some really great relationships. And I know you, being former president of the local chapter here in Phoenix, we have a tremendous relationship with the fiduciary community. But when I think about the fiduciary community, it's not just CPAs.
Right.
So let's expand a little bit about that.
Okay.
We're talking about, when I talk about the community, there's a couple segments in it. We have, of course, CPAs. We also have enrolled agents of the IRS. We also have trust officers. And in addition, several forms of attorneys. We could have tax attorneys. We could have estate attorneys. We could have probate attorneys. Ken, let's walk through some of these because not everybody's familiar with some of these different segment populations of the fiduciary community.
Okay.
So let's do yours first and get out of the way because that's the one everybody's familiar with, and then we'll go on from there. CPAs, and Ken, you and I are both, we have sat for the Series 7, and shockingly, I knew he would pass. I passed even. So we took tests. I still say there's not a college course on the face of the earth that was harder for me than the Series 7. But you say the CPA test was what?
Wow. Like 10 times harder.
10 times harder.
Right, I don't know what they're testing today, but it was 2.5 days back then and mostly written. And there were guys, the test was given every 6 months. It took them 5 months to grade. And these guys would take the test, didn't know whether they passed or not, and would continue to study until they found out whether they passed or not, so they'd be ready for the next time. And I think the first time through, people that passed the test, you know, the first time through is like 7%, or at least it was in California at the time.
Wow, that's low.
So, I mean, they do allow people to take it in segments after they get 2 of the 4. They call them getting legs. But yeah, very, very difficult, and probably one of the real career highlights of my life. So
Just passing that exam.
yeah, just getting the exam passed.
Well, CPAs, listen, we're all this week, if I had to use a code name, a street kind of name, all the fiduciary market that we're talking about, these are the gatekeepers. I mean, really, when you think about it. And we're going to be giving away unbelievable amounts of material on how to market to this community, and you can go out to that landing page site at www.brokersalliance.com/gatekeepers, and we're going to have the 5-part video, and Ken's got a monster white paper on the fiduciary market. It's going to be really great. We're going to be giving that away, and then all the things that we're going to be talking about Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday. It's probably one of our best landing page giveaways of all time. We really went out of our way so that we can win and help introduce you into the fiduciary market and actually get some business out of this.
Sure.
So let's talk about enrolled agents of the IRS. I mean, when I think of, I have to say, I left these out and I spoke to their convention some years back. Wow, I mean, the anal attentive among us. Oh my goodness, Ken.
Well, what an enrolled agent is what's interesting is the attorneys actually tried to squeeze people out from practicing law, but the Internal Revenue Service, well, actually, it's the Patent Office originally, the federal government said, no, we can let anybody practice before us that we want. And so that same court case then goes over into practicing before the Internal Revenue Service that says, yeah, we can license men and women to prepare tax returns and submit them, and we'll license them to do that. And so these people take a pretty substantial test themselves, and of course it's all focused on tax law. It's not nearly as broad as what a CPA would be, but they're very focused on that. But these are very fine men and women that are excellent, and they're many times a lot more open to talking to us than the actual CPAs are. And in fact, a number of them are actually licensed themselves. And it's a very different kind of thing. It's sort of like a nurse practitioner versus a doctor. They spend more time with you and that type of thing. So I've met some really fine people.
Now, when they become enrolled agents now, they can practice defending their clients in front of the IRS too, as well, right?
Oh, sure.
So I mean, that's kind of a, maybe I can't afford the billable hour of a CPA, but maybe the billable hour of an enrolled agent, a little bit less and a lot more access. And I think, like you just said, because that really reminds me, a lot of people say, gee, Steve, I don't have the kind of language and the skills, engagement skills with a CPA, but I found, and I want your opinion, enrolled agents seem to be a lot less intense in the actual minutia of the law. They have their good ideas, but they seem normal.
Yeah, they don't have as much trouble with the whole sales aspect or being proactive in some ways. They have a different mindset, and they're a little more down to earth, a little easier to approach and deal with, and they're.
What about trust officers? I mean, we have to talk to these people because now, I mean, they're really overseeing huge estates because we're using second to die, regular single life cases, sometimes an annuity if they're an asset allocating a trust officer.
Sure. Well, trust officers are there to manage trusts. You know, people bring assets to them. They need a corporate trustee, somebody that will make sure that the wills or trusts are executed the way they're supposed to be. And that's what trust companies are all about, and those people are fiduciaries as well. So,
when I think about them as fiduciaries, I'm wondering if they have figured out that they have liability to do some of the reviews and some of the actual work orders that we're going to talk about after the second segment, because I think that's an area where we could actually be a huge benefit to their practice.
I think so.
Well, remember, you can contact me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com or call our toll-free number 1-800-290-7226. And don't forget to catch our show at www.brokersalliance.com. Just go on our homepage and hit the on-demand video button. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Companies in our business are always touting service, products, and underwriting. And we do that too. But here's the difference. Now enter the world of the elite producer with a value package that cuts us out of the pack. A BD that approves social media marketing of non-FINRA products and doesn't take an override. With the best competition desk in the industry, and for our loyal producers, a true group health plan. No one offers that. Brokers Alliance does.
Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. We're with, of course, Ken Davis, CLU, CHFC, and CPA. We're talking about marketing to the fiduciary community and specifically walking through who comprises that. Just before the break, Ken, we were talking about trust officers, and I find it actually enlightening and illuminating that these men and women don't understand that they may have some liability here on some of the areas of our practice in insurance about policy review and things like that, which we're going to get into later on in the week.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite the case anymore. I think the trust companies have woken up to the fact that they are responsible as fiduciaries or trustees of accounts that hold life insurance policies, and so they're starting to, I really don't have a sense of all of the trust companies, but I know they're much more aware than they used to be. But there's still a role for us to play as insurance professionals to help them evaluate the contracts, because that really isn't their specialty area.
And I think that's really true, because I think we're going to come into a whole new area of due diligence, due care, policy surveillance, monitoring. I think all this is coming online. When we're talking about fiduciaries, we've talked about CPAs, we've talked about enrolled agents, we've just touched on trust officers. I'm wondering sometimes when I'm looking at this, I kind of broken out the 3 attorney areas. Let's do tax attorneys first, because they're really kin to CPAs in some of this.
Yeah, in fact, many of the tax attorneys I've worked with were actually CPAs and attorneys, and I prefer that when I'm doing estate planning. They really need to be able to crunch the numbers and understand the law. But a tax attorney focuses on the area of the law that is basically taxes, and that can be partnerships, corporations, LLCs, individuals, whatever. And that's where their focus is. And the way law firms are designed is they have specialists in different areas and they work as teams and refer to one another.
Now, Ken, we've talked about this on our other show. When we say we give samples of documentations, and they're samples and educational pieces only.
Right.
They're never to be used at all. We are not practicing attorneys. And remember, if you need tax consulting, don't come to us.
Right.
Go to your tax advisor, and if you're FINRA licensed, always check in with your compliance department of your broker-dealer.
Right.
But so when I'm talking about this, when we're talking about estate planning, we're talking about charitable giving, any kind of business succession, all these are going to need documentation.
Right.
And I have to tell you just straight out, I'm shocked at the number, and I've been in this thing almost 30 years, the number of buy-sell agreements, cross-purchase, stock redemption, wait-and-see trusts that have no docs attached to them. So they bought the insurance, there
Right.
was no legal follow-through with an attorney. And I think that's another area of massive exposure.
Well, yeah, and what was interesting is I made it very clear to one of my clients one time where we didn't need the documents up front, but I said, you really need to get this in place. I actually went back, a few months later and asked him, did you put it in place? And they haven't. Mm-hmm. So the documents are important. I mean, we've made the sale, but if we really care about our clients, we need to go back and make sure they get it implemented.
Mm-hmm. Now, when I think of tax attorneys, I think of high-end corporate tax attorneys or maybe small business tax attorneys. But when I shift gears and I think of estate planning attorneys, because now this is major transfer issues, and especially who knows what the unified credit's going to be at the end of the year. We just got through the Obamacare issue. Now we're going to be sitting there going through an election, and who knows if Congress is going to, what? Are they going to punt the can down the road again or what? So we have no idea, but we need to be partnering with estate planning attorneys because they know the tax code, they know the estate transfer issues, the documentation, and a lot of our products fit well with them, and we need to go and educate them. And we're going to have all this week, we're going to be talking about what can we bring to the table that they actually will value. We'll show you how to penetrate the market.
Well, what's interesting about them as professionals is a lot of estate planning attorneys really depend on our industry to bring clients to them. When you have just a one or two man team, they're looking for referrals from the outside because we're closer to the client than they are. When you get into the really large firms, they cross-refer, and so they may get plenty of other clients from the other attorneys within the firm. They might be a relatively fertile ground for you to get referrals from. Okay, so just bear that in mind as you're dealing with the tax. And the other thing about the tax attorney or estate planning attorneys that are really important is they have to think like a chess player. They have to think 3, 4, 5, 6 moves deep. And what I mean by that is people don't die the way they're supposed to. I had a elderly woman, her daughter died from breast cancer first, and I went back and looked at the documents. The attorney hadn't done it right. And it was going to go all to the one child, and there was a whole branch of the family, the son-in-law and the deceased daughter's children were going to be cut out. Had to go back and reconstruct it. So they have to look at what happens if the tax law changes, what if this person dies first or that person dies first. And they have to coordinate all this and put enough flexibility into the design of those trusts that as circumstances change, the document still holds true.
Well, hopefully, if you've done your estate planning and all this, you don't need the last one, which is probate. I hope I don't need a probate attorney if I did my planning correctly.
Well, yeah, you're still going to need a probate attorney because not everything's going to be in the trust, and they're going to have to. They're still going to have to file the estate tax returns and all that other stuff. And then, interestingly enough, there's a number of choices to be made as to elections either on a personal basis or on a trust basis at death. I took a course that was fascinating about that where the attorney was arguing for more flexibility to make those choices.
Well, when we talk about this all this week, you'll be able to go out to our landing page where we're giving away Ken's huge white paper, this 5-part video series on how to market to fiduciaries, and you can go to that site at www.brokersalliance.com/gatekeepers. Why do we use the word gatekeeper, Ken? I mean, think about it as we close out the show.
Well, it's like the guards at the London Castle. They're there to protect their clients. We're commission salespeople. They're independent, fee-oriented people, and they're there to guard the door and protect their client.
Well, when I think about that, I feel like I'm putting them under siege. We're just salespeople. Wow. Well, you can contact us at the show, The Biz, at brokersalliance.com, or always call us 1-800-290-7226. Watch this show and all our shows at www.brokersalliance.com. Come on the homepage, just hit the on-demand video. We'll catch you tomorrow.
The Biz is brought to you by Brokers Alliance, a national leader in insurance products, support services, and educational workshops. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.